All right, welcome to another episode of Spiritual Fuckboy with your host, Benjamin Duffy. And I'm joined by one of my best friends, Jeffrey Kennedy, again.
What's up, guys?
And
Nice to see y'all again.
Yeah, and we are here because we had a great conversation last night at the sauna at this really dope sauna spot in Boulder called Ember Ice. Shout out to the boys who set that place up. It's kind of right by Boulder Creek, so everyone just kind of congregates there. It's like a big community center. It really kind of gives me Roman bathhouse vibes. And we just have great conversations, great connections, something about like sweating and being in an intense experience of, feeling like you're going to die in a sauna or getting in a frozen river. That just opens up really good conversations. So we had one of those really good conversations specifically about relationships, monogamy, polyamory, ethics, right, wrong. And it was really potent. And there's a lot of different perspectives, and it really had me thinking. And so, I just wanted to have that conversation with you here now to share with people because I think it's really insightful. So I'm going to give you the floor to see, kind of what's coming up, what's on your heart in regards to that conversation.
Yeah, 100%. And last night we were talking about this, and I think I discovered you and I have two different schools of thought on it. But the underlying theme of it, you have to determine what's right and what's wrong within yourself.
In relationship or in general?
Yeah, in relationship, right? Because if you are so influenced by what's right and what's wrong based off of what other people are thinking is right and wrong for them and projecting that onto you, I think that is just a recipe to have a terrible fucking time in a relationship. And as long as like your partner or partners are on board with that same idea, that's really what is going to allow open communication to be available and not be closed off or hiding certain things out of fear that come up later or resonate in bad ways.
Totally. And that's the thing with intimate relationships, whether it's monogamous or more open and polyamorous, like we have to recognize that there are always going to be pros and cons. And there are going to be things that you can do in a polyamorous relationship that you can't do in a monogamous relationship. And there's going to be things that open up in a monogamous relationship that really don't seem like they can. And this is a big question for me. I don't know if they can in a polyamorous relationship. And really what I'm doing is just firsthand experimentation. And this reminds me of a big concept that I tell to clients, I tell to friends, which is in order to know ethics, to know where a boundary is, to know right and wrong, it seems like you have to fuck around to find out, quite literally. You have to hit the boundary to know it's there. Like me personally, I can't listen to a book, whether it's the Bible or some sort of religious text or my parents telling me what's right, what's wrong. I will never listen to anyone. It has to be from my heart and soul. I have to fuck around, find out firsthand to know what's really good. And so I've had experience, playing in both monogamous and polyamorous dynamics. Polyamory is, I definitely have less, but in a recent dynamic that I've been in, it kind of opened things up for me where I was just speaking with this person that I was with, and it just spontaneously arose, and I told him I love him. And again, I don't feel bad about that, and it feels really authentic to me. And then she kind of countered saying, how many girls do you tell that to? And at first I was like, what? Like, are you calling me out right now? And I thought about it for a second, and I was really reflecting, and I was like, wait, I do love these chicks. I definitely do. Like, no one can tell me otherwise. I know what I feel in my heart. So I know it's possible to have those deep connections with people in a polyamorous dynamic where it's like, wait, I love all these chicks. Fuck, what do I do? And some of them are cool with the open dynamic and some of them are not. And then at the same time, what's the drawback of that? You know what I mean? What's the drawback of really loving multiple people and not focusing all that energy on one person?
Yeah. I think we all have a cup that when it's full, we can pour from, but eventually that cup is going to run out of liquid. And, I think that the communion between, like, more specifically a man and in between a woman, I mean, in sacred text for literally since the beginning of time has been like the fucking wave. You know what I mean? And we were talking about this in the sauna last night, where it's like even biologically, like we're designed to be monogamous. But with that also, is that outdated? And is that even applicable in 2025?
And I think we could have multiple perspectives about what we're designed for. Because I think it was in a nature doc talking about wolves or some shit, but it was like we all have these innate drives to have multiple partners because that optimizes genetic fitness. You know what I mean? Genetic diversity. So we want to play the field, but then another part of us wants the best for our offspring. And they're, evolutionarily, offspring kids have the highest chance of survival and being, well equipped to survive if they have a father and a mother. So there's two drives that are actually contradicting each other inside our biology, where we want both. And
I would even say to that, I don't think that they're contradicting forces. I would say that they're complementary forces, because it's like the feminine is not the opposite of the masculine. It's the complement of the masculine and vice versa, because if we apply that language of, they're fighting, it's like, it's not harmonious, but I'm sure you can speak to this as well. But all of the best relationships that I have been with chicks that understand the sexual polarity and the importance of that, fostering that to create harmony in the relationship.
Totally. And this brings me to a topic in Tantra. So, I've read some books on Tantra and it's really interesting. And they talk about the necessity of polarity of the masculine and the feminine, for instance. We need this kind of duality where when you have a partner, a lover that can really be in their feminine, for instance, that actually allows you and actually kind of forces you to be in a more polarized version of your masculine. And I want to bring this to the understandings present in depth psychology about archetypes, imaginal images that we are experiencing, that we are expressing right now, where ultimately you could say that everything that we are is an imaginal image. And there's something so potent about the sexual experience when passion and desire is so high. How do you express? How do you hold yourself? What do you do to that person, for that person in that very intense experience? What kind of gods, archetypes, images are you channeling? And are we actually cutting ourselves off from certain archetypes, certain spirits that want to live through us in those intimate sexual experiences? And again, a lot of the time in today's world, we seem to want to merge polarity in the sense of it's not okay to have the masculine and the feminine be so different. And at the same time, is that even possible? I feel like we need some sort of distinction. We need some sort of difference, some complementarity between equals. They're equal and opposite in a sense. And we are skating on sketchy, thin ice right now, talking about this subject with woke culture, even though that is, going downhill rapidly.
Bro, fuck them.
Literally. And this is an open question. Like, what's the benefit of heightened polarities of the masculine and the feminine? And I think you can even relate it to electricity. It's like in alternating current, you have this kind of back and forth thing going on. It's like you need sort of these two poles. You know what I mean? So Hermes Trismegistus too, who, kind of founded Hermeticism, he says that polarity is actually a law. It's a law of this place. You can't escape it. There is polarity. There's life, death. There's day and night, hot and cold. Where there's experience is polarity. But yeah, I want to bring this back to the main topic, which is monogamy and polyamory. And just, again, sifting through what is conditioning? What, ethically speaking, what am I experiencing that is directly dependent on societal religious conditioning? And can I separate myself from that? And then how do I act if I have a bird's eye view on the conditioning that has molded our code of ethics, our worldview, our sense of self? What happens when I can get some distance from that? What is right and wrong?
Yeah. And again, I think that you have to determine that for yourself. And that's really the biggest driving point to this. Because what's right for me might not be right for you, and vice versa. And I think my dad would always tell me this, that if you lead yourself in the way that you want to live, the right people that agree with your way of thinking are going to follow. So it's like, why even force, an idea that, you don't feel sits right with you? Because in the end, is that really you being authentic?
Right.
And if you're not authentic, what kind of people are you drawing in your life? People that value the real you? Absolutely not. They have only known you and they only recognize you of this image that you're portraying.
Right.
And I find after a while, one, that gets really exhausting trying to keep that image up. And two, it really creates a strong barrier to entry to deeper connections.
Exactly. And this is a beautiful conversation. It's talking about masks that we wear in order to be socially accepted. And when we wear a mask, what's the consequence? Yes, maybe we're more socially accepted in the circles that actually we don't even belong into. We don't even deeply want to be a part of. But the human being just really deeply craves connection. It's lonely as a human being, especially when you're stuck in the delusional experience of a separate self. And then we crave that connection. And when we wear those masks in order to connect, we are, again, actually separating ourselves from real deep connection, from the medicine that is being seen in your totality by community, being held in that. Because that's something, again, you can't buy. But what's the outcome? What's the effect when you can really express yourself to people? Monogamous, polyamorous, no matter what. I'm into sports, I'm not into sports, I'm into music, I'm into outdoor shit, I'm into race cars. Who gives a fuck? Literally, if we can express ourselves authentically, you are not just being held in your expression and you recognize, oh, I don't have to hide. I don't have to wear a mask. I can be accepted, likable, connected with other people for being just me, how I am. And I think so many people have this ingrained fear where I think with the fear is actually shame, where if people just saw the real me, no one would like me. If they knew how much I was uncertain, hated myself, if they saw the weakness in me, they would not like me. And that fear is keeping you from raw expression, the strength and the healing that comes with it. And so again, for me in this topic, again, circling back to the main convo, which is monogamy and polyamory, what do you want? And I mean that for everybody listening. Quite literally, what do you want? This is a question that we can ask in, the context of relationships, but also in the context of life, period. In this brief period, this brief window between birth and death, what do you want? And so many people don't know. And they actually, I've found, they feel this discomfort with not knowing. So they avoid the question altogether. And then it seems like a lot of people are just floating. They're just floating through life, not really, no direction, no compass. But really, what do you want?
Well, so this actually brings up a great point. When you're floating and like you feel like you have no direction, right? There's two ways to take that. You can be like, well, fuck me. Like I'm lost. I don't know what to do. But the deeper level to that, and I think where some actual real spiritual development will come from, is recognizing that as groundlessness. And the moment that you recognize that as groundlessness, you're like, yo, I'm actually not lost. I'm actually just fucking making the map as I go.
Let's go.
Like I'm making the map right now. I don't need a compass, bro. Straight up.
Sick. Yes. Thank you so much for bringing that up. There's another topic we talked about at the sauna. And you talked about groundlessness. This experience of not knowing. I don't know what I want. I don't know who I am. I don't know what direction to go into. Great. Sit with that. Don't try to change it. Don't numb it. Don't fall into the helpless pit of alcohol abuse or substance abuse or sex abuse, anything. We avoid groundlessness at all costs. The ego actually does. Because if the ego gets submerged in an experience of groundlessness, it is a death experience for the ego. And when I say groundlessness, I mean not knowing. I mean the void. I mean the absence of certainty. And what's interesting about the void, about groundlessness, is when we are lacking any solid delineation about what I am and what I'm not, or about what I want and what I'm not, when there's no solidity there, we're actually open to infinite possibilities. So the phrase I always use is the void is not empty in the way that we think. It's actually pregnant with infinity. And I mean that quite literally. In the absence of any delineated thing, it's open to literally everything. So when we avoid those experiences of groundlessness, those dark times when you don't know who you are, you don't know where you're going, we avoid that at all costs. But actually that is what we need to learn how to embrace, how to marinate in that groundlessness, so that there can be this resurrection rebirth experience when you're in infinite potential. All of a sudden something really profound comes through you. Again, where did it come from? Who told you to go in that direction? It's something like intrinsically mystical, actually, as far as like where are we going? How are we developing? And you spoke to an experience that you had with one of your injuries and groundlessness. And I want to see if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, 100%. Recovering from the concussion, having just a miserable fucking time chilling up in the room.
So context for Jeff, he's a snowboard instructor for 8 years. He's sort of a all things outdoor recreation kind of guy. So yeah, he got a concussion and that kind of sidelined him for a second.
Yeah, so I got sidelined. I just came off a fucking great summertime. Hit an ultra, hit like 220 days on the snowboard, and coming off a fire summer, get concussed, and that whole identity of who I thought I was, like fucking chiller, mountain crusher, whatever, got taken away from me. And I was like, well, fuck, this really sucks. I have no idea who I am. I don't feel confident because the external things that made me who I thought I was, I don't have anymore, and I don't have that as something for my ego to lean on. And through that experience, the longer I dealt with it, the more I meditated on it, I was like, well, I mean, I don't think that, one, I'm going to be able to do this for the rest of my life. So eventually I'm going to slow down. What happens when I start slowing down? What happens when I'm old and I'm not able to pursue what I want to at the level that I am right now? And then it's like, well, that's actually really special, because maybe you're not, this X, Y, and Z person. Maybe you're just open to infinite potentials about who you are. And it goes deeper than what you do. It goes about how you treat people. It goes about how you describe yourself to yourself, and it goes about how you decide to perceive the world, because that's so fluid. And that's one thing I learned, is that fluid expression of your identity, who you are, is such a strong place to be, because you're not confined to a box. You're not confined to, oh, I'm this kind of person and I do things this way. Instead, it's open, and you realize you have room for so much more. You have room for so many more possibilities to come your way, because you're open to it, because you're not confined.
And so to bring this back, can we apply that to intimate relationships? So what does that mean? Openness, open to anything. If I want to be just with one person, I have that pull. Great. But is that a forever thing? How long do those feelings last? And that's an open question. We can keep reaffirming the status of a monogamous relationship. And I think there's a beauty in that. I haven't been able to do it for very long, if I'm being honest. But I think there's also a beauty in the openness and recognizing, or really just asking the question, what does love look like? Like, what does loving this person really mean? Does it mean I lock them down and I'm theirs and they're mine and that's it? Or what if they have a desire to connect, to merge with other beings, with other faces of God? Because that's what we are. All of us were made in the image of that. And can we recognize that there's nothing wrong with that? If someone has a pull, a desire to explore themselves and their archetypal imaginal expressions, can we let them? Can we let them? Can we let them follow their desires? Or are we too contracted in fear, insecurity, and just clinging and craving, really, if we're using Buddhist terms, to let them do that? And what about you? As far as like me in the relationship, am I comfortable letting somebody do that? What comes up for me in those open relationships when they want to connect with other people? Because I find that is the most potent mirror to see all the ways you still don't love yourself. Because if you really loved all those parts of you to the point where it wasn't an issue, what is them trying to hook up with other people going to say about you? I've already dealt with everything. I still know I'm high value. I love myself. I know my worth. I know my value. I know I'm whole, regardless of who's around. And that's the thing. We can maintain that regardless of the person in our life, or if they're not in our life. And so I think for me, really in monogamous relationships, again, long-term monogamous relationships, just asking the question, and this might be a tender question for some people, but is the relationship, or how much of the relationship is actually built on clinging, which in Buddhist terminology is actually equivalent to suffering? How much of staying in a monogamous relationship is due to the fact that I can't step into groundlessness? I can't step into who am I without them? What is my life without them? And I think, again, there's no right or wrong. I want to just reinforce that. I'm just talking from my own personal experience. And I've noticed in my monogamous relationships, it comes to a point where there's clearly clinging there. And that's why I'm not taking chances or telling them we have to end it. Also, an inability to step into pain and endings and grief. Because no matter what, in any relationship, somebody's got to die first. Somebody will leave. Something happens. Nothing it will last forever. This is a mark of existence and permanence. So how much of our monogamous relationships are actually due to a fear, an inability to step into grief? And that's really an open question. What happens when I am so familiar with the experience of grief, sadness, and endings, where I just can, again, relax the resistance in my body? Because really it's the resistance to the ending that hurts so bad. The ending, yes, there's pain there. It's our own resistance to that pain that is amplifying it to a degree where it's crippling. So again, can we become familiar with the experience of endings, of grief, of sadness, pain, loss, so that we're not afraid to follow our hearts? Because guess what? Your heart might not lead you into a cushy place all the time. It might lead you into treacherous territory. It might lead you into painful experiences. But can we trust that? Can we trust that the heart is actually guiding us to where we need to be? And if we hold that perspective, that the heart is always guiding us to really our highest timeline, can we ever really take a loss? What does that mean? Because even something painful or a mistake is part of the necessary journey that you're on. So I want to speak to that, because that was another really dope topic that we spoke about at the sauna, which is basically you can hold a perspective where no matter what happens in life, you can never take an L. Basically, everything is working for you.
Yeah, 100%. Young Jeffrey, one of the greatest rap artists of all time, just did an interview. And one quote he was like,
Young Jeffrey is who?
Young Thug.
Thugger, baby.
And it was honestly like, it was funny, but I think he spoke to something really deep here. He was like, if we go to jail for the rest of our life, whoop-de-doo, we go to jail. If we beat them folks, whoop-de-doo, we beat the case and we go forward. And, as funny as that is, I think that that's honestly a really powerful message to have. Just knowing that, you can be open to experiencing the pain. You can be open to experiencing the good things in life as well. But the question is like, can we detach ourselves from the outcome to enjoy the way there?
Wow.
Even if it sucks, because it's like, if we're so attached to an outcome, that's what we expect. And then any time that we don't reach that outcome, we're fucking shattered. It sucks. Yeah. And like for a lot of people, throw them off a track of, whether you're trying to implement like a sustainable habit or a sustainable change in your life. What happens when you're so attached to the outcome and the outcome doesn't work? Mm-hmm. What happens then?
Bro, and it's so cool that you say that, because one of the quotes from the Bhagavad Gita, which is one of the primary texts in Hinduism that has really stuck with me, is something along the lines of, you're entitled to your actions, but you are not entitled to the fruits of those actions. Mm-hmm. So no matter what you do, even if you're striving to be successful, to be great, to really live this life that you're destined for, if it doesn't, if we have expectations about what that looks like, we're setting ourselves up for suffering. Because even if you're given so many gifts, but it doesn't look like the idealized image in your mind of what you thought your future was, then you're gonna suffer. You're like, fuck, why didn't I reach my goal? While at the same time, you're being given all of these blessings. So again, being entitled to your actions, and when I say that, I mean following the heart, following desires, and that does not just mean sexual desires. That means the desire to become a certain person, become the man that you have dreamt about, that only you can be, the man, the woman, whatever. We have these desires to become. We have these desires to make an impact on the world. And can we trust that? And can we have, like a 3, 5, 10-year vision? But if things start to, go in a different direction, can we turn, pivot, and adjust our expectation of what my life is going to look like? And this really comes to an idea that I made an Instagram video about pretty recently, which is, if we are not resisting life, if we're not wishing it was some other way, we're not wishing we were some other way, the experiences that come to me, I'm not wishing they could be different or better. then we're able to tap into this intrinsic sense of perfection about reality and experience, where we're not making this distance between me and my perceived reality, my experience. And because I'm not making this distance, I'm fully connected with myself, the feelings in my body, good or bad, the thoughts in my mind, what's coming through me and what's coming to me externally. And when I can, again, just not wish things were different, then I can start to really taste and drink in the perfection of this moment. And that is something that is profoundly transformative that I think really we should spend some time talking about, because how much of our lives do we spend separating ourselves from the perfection of this moment, saying, if only I had more money, if only more people liked me, if only I could have more freedom and free time. Sure, yeah, we can think like that. But the real question is, what's the result of holding that line of thought? We're disconnecting ourselves from the blessings that are always present.
Yeah, 100%. I think like when you begin to wish things weren't, when you begin to wish that things were different than how they currently are, you're closing yourself off to the possibility of other blessings coming into your life. You know, when you're just constantly in this state of, I want, I need. It's like, bro, like roof over your head, you got food and you got water. Beyond that, do you really want anything else? And like, you can answer yes or no. But if you feel like you need it or you feel like you want it, it feels so out of reach, you know? And like, this is a problem I have with people that are like, oh, I'm chasing my dreams. I'm chasing the money. Like, bro, that shit's running from you, dog. If you're chasing it, it's running from you. What happens if you can just sit with it and open up yourself to infinite possibilities of how you want your journey to look? You know, like, yeah, it can suck. You can wish things were different. And if it's in your control, yeah, sure, take the actions you can to you know, have a fruitful outcome. But one, realize not everything is promised. And two, I think if you put your heart and your soul into doing whatever you want to do, yeah, even if it doesn't work out in the end, what's your worst case scenario here? You committed your life to doing something that you love, that you feel like makes an impact.
Facts.
You know what I mean?
Could be worse.
Yeah.
We take no
always.
Yeah. No losses all day. But this again, so just with my background being heavily in Buddhism, this whole notion of letting go of expectation and letting go of really wishing things were different goes to one of the fundamental teachings in all of the schools of Buddhism, which is that suffering is a result of our clinging and our craving, wishing things were different. So we can just kind of extrapolate this to a really extreme place where what happens when I let go of all my desires, when I let go of my wish that anything was different at all, then where am I? And interestingly, that's at least in Theravadan Buddhism, which is, you know, sort of endemic to Southeast Asia. That's the main thrust for individual freedom, is letting go of all of your desires. And so it's one thing to say that conceptually, oh, just let go of your desires and you'll be free and actually enlightened and you'll be in nirvana. So that sounds dope. You might be able to get that conceptually, but then it's another thing to actually know first where you're holding on. Where am I wishing things were different? Because a lot of the time it's really subtle. Like, it's not even in the conscious mind. There's some sort of ingrained story or conditioning that is actually saying, I'm not enough right now. I need more money. I need new Benz. I need to go to Jamaica. I need 1 million followers. Fuck. And it's just like, again, these stories, they might not even be conscious. So step one of really learning how to let go of desire is seeing, where am I wishing things were different? Where am I separating myself from reality right now? And that's where meditation comes in, really the practice of simplifying so we can tune into the subtle experience energetically, mentally, conceptually. And then from that place, if you want, you can start to really let go in these really deep ways that lead to an extremely different experience of the world. And I want to talk about this for just a second, which is my experience when I was traveling at Zen centers. When I was like really deep in meditation, and you know, some of the centers we do a week retreat every month, and it's like 4 hours of meditation a day, and it's all, you know, very mindful work practice. So let's just say my mind was extremely different than it is right now when I was living that lifestyle for a considerable period of time. And I will say, like, through that degree of meditation, you are letting go of so much. And it's not even conceptual. It's like deeper than that. It's the unconscious of the psyche. And there's just these releases. And from that place, I always tell my friends this, but I don't think it sinks, is like, there's nothing in this world of just normative experience that can touch the pleasantness and the bliss of that degree of clarity, of that degree of simplicity. It's just, there's nothing like it. And after I've had those experiences at the Zen centers, like, I could feel it fading when I came back into like the real world. And a part of me was like, it's okay. I'm going to let it go for now because I have things to do. But I know if I want to live a really an optimal experience, do less. Do less and let go, because it's actually the holding on that hurts. And just to bring this full circle, I want to talk about depth psychology and the role of suffering, actually. So Buddhism, at least traditional Buddhism, says that, suffering is definitely what we want to get rid of. Where depth psychology says that actually suffering has a place. And your soul, in the context of depth psychology, which is again influenced by Carl Jung, James Hillman, they would say that actually your suffering is where the soul wants to go. It wants to experience some varied terrain in life. It wants the highs, it wants the lows, it wants to be broken open by life. It's actually, even if we have billions of dollars, the soul will find a way to fuck itself up, to find some darkness, because actually that's deeply nourishing to the being. There's a lot of fertility in those dark experiences, and that is, the archetypal, metaphorical, and very real story of the dark night of the soul that I would say most people experience sooner or eventually in their lives, just hitting a real period of darkness and recognizing from the angle of depth psychology, there's actually nothing wrong with that, because it can break you open to deeper parts of yourself, deeper understandings, and what gives you drive, motivation, and direction, like really being in darkness. There's nothing like it.
Yeah. And I think too that like true darkness, why we choose to run away from it, or why we choose to numb it, is because that's who we actually are. And we know deep down that is who we actually are, and we don't want to recognize that. Like, no, that's not me. That's not how I think. That's not how this Jeffrey thinks. So I mean, that's why you're running from it. It's because that on a super deep level is truly who you are. And it's like, do you have the wherewithal to open to that? Or are you going to keep numbing or running?
And that's the thing. We could say maybe that's not who you are in totality, but that's a part of you. That's a very real part of you. And again, the more you push that part away, you're really separating yourself from your wholeness. And that wholeness includes some darkness. And that's a part of, I think, again, I want to bring it back to sexual expression, sexual archetypal expression. There can be darkness in life that you express, not just in the world, but in those sexual intimate settings. And you get to honor the darkness sexually and also in life. We get to honor this darkness. Stop resisting it, because it's got valuable lessons to teach you. Always, the darkness is the most fertile place in life, where we extract so much richness. And again, when we reject that, when we're like, oh, I'm just a happy person, I'm just a good guy, I'm not dark. Are you sure? Because this human experience, it's extremely complex. And I think a big part of a healthy life is a full spectrum life, and not being afraid of the darkness. Because when you're afraid of the darkness, again, what's going on there is you are resisting the darkness. And when you resist it, you're amplifying your subjective experience of suffering that is associated with that darkness. And yes, maybe it's painful. Yes, maybe it's uncomfortable. Maybe it's confusing. But the more you resist that, the more you are constructing out of thin air an potentially extremely intense experience of suffering. So what happens when we stop resisting the darkness, when we learn how to honor it, when we learn how to even maybe worship that darkness in a more non-dual kind of way, then all of a sudden the suffering associated with it starts to fade. It starts to drastically decrease because I'm not resisting it. I can be empowered by the darkness. And when we talk about darkness, obviously this can be a very general word. When I'm talking about darkness, I mean the unpleasant things in life, the fear, the death, the tragedy, the not knowing, the depression, the anxiety, that. And I know everyone listening has some flavor of experience with that. So let's talk about it. And this is a big thing about psychotherapy, is a lot of time we're just finally talking about the darkness. And why are we waiting till psychotherapy? Like, this is a part of the human experience. We should bring it up in community. It doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean something's wrong with you if you're experiencing darkness. It means you're a human being having a full spectrum experience. And let's honor that. Let's learn how to sink our teeth into all of, again, the different colors of the human experience, because there's nothing wrong with any of them intrinsically. That's, again, that's one of the ways we separate ourselves from the kingdom of God, from nirvana, from heaven on earth. We separate ourselves because I say, I don't like this. Okay, if you say so. Can we switch our perspective to actually find a little bit of even joy and beauty in really difficult experiences? It's just a tweak in the relationship, really.
And I think, too, that it's such a great way to foster connection with other people, because we all have infinitely diverse experiences in life, but how we feel about them and how we choose to cling to it and how we choose to suffer because of that, I think is something that on some level, every single human being can relate to, right? So if you're able to be vulnerable enough with a friend that you trust, or even in a romantic relationship, be able to be vulnerable and be able to open to that, odds are your experience, even though it might come in a different way, is still felt the same way by the other person. And then it's like, all right, we both experience this very, very strong emotion. What connection, what new ideas can I open to communicating that with someone that I love and trust?
Yeah. And I want to bring this back to, I'm glad you brought it back to relationship, because I want to give a concrete example from my own life about sort of my inability to be with my own darkness and how that fucked everything up for me. So I was with this beautiful creature a few years ago. I'm not going to say her name, but she was just, at the time, one of the finest people I've been with, just such an angel. Like, I'm sure y'all know the types, but there's a part of me that felt insecure about the way that she would interact with other dudes around me. And we had this like sort of, again, this archetypal sort of experience together where I was sort of the knight in shining armor, and that felt really good. And so expressing any of that insecurity to her felt like I was kind of breaking the role. Like, oh, I can't show my weakness to this girl that I love, or else she's, gonna leave me. She'll recognize again my weakness and leave me. So due to my inability to share my insecurity, it festered. And it like rotted the relationship inside me. And it caused me to do things that I really regret. Things that were a product of just not being strong enough to share myself with her, share myself in totality. And it ruined everything. And I can never get that relationship back. And this also makes me want to talk about the benefits of monogamous relationship as an extremely potent mirror as well as polyamorous relationships, which show you all the ways you don't love yourself. Same with monogamous relationships. Whenever there's that intensity, it's the light is so bright you can't help but see all the darkness, really. And that's, again, can we get a flavor for that? Can we find support in our friend groups, in our community, in our family, even with trained professionals, so that we can learn how to embrace that darkness? Because again, from my own experience with my ex, it fucked everything up. And again, I can never have that back. And that's a shame. But it's all, again, this is all part of the plan. And this brings me back to this idea that, we take no L's, we take no losses, no matter what. In order for me personally to learn, I need to hit the boundary. I need to hit a boundary ethically, morally, or whatever in relationship to know that there is a boundary. I can't just listen to people. I can't just, I have to hit it myself. And then I learn it at the level of like my heart and soul. So,
and I would say too, the only way to take the L is to not find that boundary at all.
Not to take the
then
chance.
You just don't know.
And that's a huge thing too. I think especially with men, well, just people in our culture, which is this feeling of stagnating, where some people seem like they're, maybe it's like an experience of analysis paralysis, where there's so many options available that they don't know what to do. They don't know where to go. So I'm just going to play video games and drink and watch Netflix and order pizza and just to like cope with life. And this was a big topic of our last conversation, I think, which was we don't have to just cope. We don't have to just cope. We can, again, sit with that uncertainty, sit with that not knowing, and actually rise to the occasion. Be like, oh shit, yeah, I don't know what to do with my life, and I'm feeling some anxiety about that. Can I choose to go on a walk, or to go to the gym, or to talk with friends, or to go to the sauna, or to write, to journal, to do art? Or do I choose to escape? And I feel like I'm kind of biased because I have certain, things that I like to do. I just see some people, I see like people that play a lot of video games and drink a lot of alcohol. Like, sure, nothing intrinsically wrong with that. But like, look at their health, look at their bodies. And it seems like a lot of people get themselves in a rut because they don't make other, real social relationships. They don't have other real in life hobbies. And they enter this wormhole where, I don't know. I'm like, for me, it's like, I guess there's nothing wrong with video games. There's nothing wrong with alcohol. This is just my example, but is there? Like, quite literally, is there?
I feel like, it comes down to how you view yourself, in like your physical body, granted you don't have any elements that stop you from doing stuff. Your physical body is a reflection of up here. You know what I mean? And if your physical body is not good, odds are your mental health isn't great either. And you know what? They feed off each other. Oh, because my mental health is shit, I don't want to go work out today. Well, I didn't work out today, so now I feel like shit. So again, I don't think that there's necessarily, I don't want to say it's wrong, right? Because everyone has to live their own life. And like, who the fuck am I to judge that? But I do definitely think that the actions that you engage in subconsciously tell you how much you value yourself. And that is the more important lens to have with it. Because if you're always subconsciously not valuing yourself, or you're subconsciously doubting yourself, what viewpoint are you going to project onto the world? What perceptions of the world, what perceptions of what's happening to you are you telling yourself? And with that, what story are you constructing? And what story are you choosing to believe in? And the more that you choose to believe into a story, the more that the ego is going to search for things in your reality that affirm that to you. So why not make it good? Why not make it empowering?
That is heat, my man. Thank you so much for saying that. Because that's the impact of holding stories, is when you hold a story, and a lot of time when you hold a story and you don't recognize that it's actually a story, you think it's just reality.
Yeah.
Little do we know there is no reality we can ever come to that is going to be separate from a story. Never, never, never. The story that there is no story is an extremely popular story. And at the same time, like you said, when we hold a story like I'm a victim or I'm a loser, nobody likes me, actually what you're doing is you're priming perception to pick up things in your experience that reaffirm that belief, that empty, made up, fabricated story. So I think I'm a loser, and I notice all the ways people don't connect with me, all the ways people look the other way. Oh, somebody's laughing. It's probably because I look stupid or I smell bad. Like literally, you know what I'm saying though? And just like when you hold a equally empty, made up story that I'm a winner, I'm high value, I'm successful, I am living my dream every day. When you hold that story, perception mystically finds ways to support it. It's confirmation bias in the sense of we are confirming what we already know. And that is what is so necessary to know. What story are you living right now? Because it's not just in your mind. It's much more subtle than that. Everything that we are, everything that we experience is a result of the stories that we hold. And a lot of the stories that we hold, we actually haven't been given a choice to choose them or not. It's societal conditioning, religious conditioning. It's the culture it's the waters we're swimming in. So this is a big part of the work that I'm trying to do, is to recognize the waters that we're swimming in, recognize the conditioning and how deep that goes. Is that the view that you really want to hold, that your soul, your spirit, the deepest parts of you are trying to live? And just ask that question, is it? Because I think everyone, for instance, I don't know if anyone consciously would want to live an empowered story forever. Maybe, that feeling of disempowerment, feeling like a victim is part of your path temporarily. I mean, hey, maybe it takes lifetimes to get out of that. And again, from the angle of depth psychology, there's a reason for that. The soul craves that darkness, that fertility. But at the same time, we don't have to. And I'm here to tell you, you can shift the stories. You can shift really the stories that we are living by and from and within in deep ways. Because again, a lot of the time we think this is just reality. This is what's real, meaning this is how things appear. And that's just how things are. So for instance, I live in a worldview that is conditioned by, I'll just say, perspectives, stories like scientism, saying science is what's real, nothing else is. Materialism, matter is what's real, everything else imaginary is not. And then reductionism, which is reducing reality to this narrow mold. When we live in that worldview, which is heavily conditioned and kind of pressed upon us, the outcome is we live in a flat existence where, you know, basically we're living in a random chaotic universe we have no understanding of. It's not conscious, it's not intelligent, it doesn't speak to us, and we're just kind of in these bodies. No one knows why we just showed up here. So that's a story. And that story leads to a pretty depressing existence of a flat, lifeless place. Okay, great. We created that. And at that point, just drink yourself to death, buy a bunch of hookers and cocaine and go to Mexico. Because fuck it, who cares? We're living in this bullshit place. But if we hold that view, we need to recognize that is only a story.
Mm-hmm. Dude,
and, yeah.
This is legitimately, like, this is the message I hope to inspire everyone listening, all the homies with. Like, straight up, this is so key, right? You write your own story and you have accountability over yourself. You have accountability over your own actions. You have accountability. You have the ability to carry out your life's purpose. And whether you choose to or not, it is all on you. No one is going to do it for you. You can listen to as many podcasts, you can read as much self-help as you would like, but really what it comes down to, one, awareness of the mind and the body, and then choosing to do something with that and choose to make it the best thing ever. And that is it. That, if I could sum this up into 5 sentences, that would be it.
Yeah. Let's fucking go, bro. So that's what I'm talking about. This is not just a hypothetical thing. This is something that you can take into practice that changes everything. And I cannot emphasize that enough. You might be like, oh, maybe. Well, no, everything. Like, let's be honest. Where can you separate yourself from the stories you are telling yourself? Can we, again, first spend some time being aware of what are the stories I'm living in right now? And are they real? Just because everyone else believes a certain story does not make it real. It means everyone else believes in it. But again, I want to take this to Buddhism, where they would say, at its root, reality is intrinsically empty of inherent existence, in the sense that in order for anything to manifest and to be deemed real, it's dependent on the mind. You can never separate reality from the mind that is experiencing it. Never. You can't. Even matter that seems so real to the materialistic perspective. Actually, you could make the claim that consciousness, that mind, is much more primary. Mind created matter. And we could never separate ourselves from that. So again, how real is this place? And this is a question we have to ask that is inherently difficult because it's taking you into groundlessness, which is, am I real? Is this whole shit going on right now, is this real? And how do I know? Because people said so? Who? And what do they know? Like, quite literally. And what is real? Like, is a dream real? Because it seems pretty real until you wake up and you're like, oh, that was a dream. But does that mean it wasn't real? Do you see what I'm saying here? What is going on? How real is it? What even fucking is real? And these are necessary questions to ask to get you closer to groundlessness. And if this conversation seems a little disturbing or there's some charge in your body as a result, it's probably because the ego is actually holding on for dear life to some stability, some groundedness. And that's actually the work that has to be done if you want to taste real freedom, which is to step into deeper groundlessness, because the ego will dissolve. Because when the world is groundless, the ego that exists within it, the sense of self, what you are, is also groundless. And all of a sudden, there's nothing real here. And that's that place you want to be. That's where there's infinite potential. Because when you're groundless, you can become anybody. And some of my friends from high school, I hope that some of y'all see this someday, because your boy Duff is radically different than he was in high school. And I know y'all know that. Like, let's be honest. And why is that? I would say because I had direct experience tasting, living in, bathing in groundlessness, where I am free to be anybody that I choose to be, because there is no real me here, and I know that. There is no real Ben that you could ever get to beyond your mind. And at that point, it's the ultimate permission slip to be anyone you ever wanted to be, to try that on like clothes and let that become you in the most visceral way, make it as real as anything else. Again, recognize these are all stories. And again, emptiness is the ultimate permission slip to live any story that you could ever want, to become the creator, to take the reins over your life, to recognize it's not in anyone else's hands, it's in yours.
Straight up. I mean, I don't think I could have said that any better myself.
Mad, bro. That was
like,
sick.
that was great.
Sick. Yeah, that was bars. Yeah, so I guess I want to keep talking. I mean, we're about 50 minutes in, so we can keep going. But yeah, that concept of taking no losses also. I think, again, this is another example of how we can start to maneuver story, start to mold story into an experience that really is better, that changes things for us. So what, for me, for you, I want you to explain what that means. So understanding that we can really not take any losses in this life. What does that story mean to you?
Yeah, we talked about this on the last episode. Moving like it's already yours. The universe doesn't give you more of what you want, it gives you more of what you are, you know? And if you, and again, detaching from the outcome. Because when you can detach from the outcome, your performance is going to be so consistent because you don't give a fuck. You just know that you're doing what you need to do because it needs to be done, not because you're doing what you need to do because you hope a certain outcome happens from that. So I think that's really what it comes down to for me.
What about when things get difficult?
Yeah, then I think one, and I've actually just experienced this pretty recently. One, it's like the mind wants to fight, like things are difficult. Why are they this way? Why are this way? But you know what I've realized overcoming difficult situations as I've grown older? Bro, the best things come after that realization, after you push through the difficult time, after you push through making the difficult decision. But it's up to you to listen to it. And it's up to you, again, to do something with it. Yeah. And it's recognizing that, yeah, it's probably going to hurt. But you know what else is going to hurt? Not exploring that. Yeah. You know, a man that, you know, tastes fear will also soon enough taste suffering, you know? And it's like, do you want to choose to, what story do you want to believe in? Right. It's really what it comes back to.
And 2 points here. One is recognizing that even if things are difficult, can I trust that this is for me? Recognizing, looking at the difficult experiences in your life before. What's the meaning you made out of those? Maybe I had to learn a certain lesson. Maybe I had to learn how to be strong and resilient. And now it's serving me. So thank you for the difficult times, life, creation, universe. And another thing that just hearing you say, you know, we get to choose whether we're sort of gonna, fight the difficulty. I don't love that word, but we're gonna try to solve it. We're gonna try to solve difficult experience, or we're not going to. We're just gonna be complacent. And what that makes me think of is in Buddhism, they talk about 6 realms, one of which is a hell realm. And in the hell realms, there's actually 2 hell realms. There's a hot hell and there's a cold hell. So it makes me think, just applying that to this scenario, maybe a hot hell is too much passion, too much desire. Nothing's ever enough. I go, and nothing makes a difference. Too much passion turns into a hell realm. But at the same time, you go in the opposite direction and you're in a complacent place. Again, you don't do anything. You're not making moves. You're not making new social connections. You're not exploring the infinitude of this existence. And it's just a cold hell. Nothing's really going on. You're sort of frozen. Still a hell realm. And I think to get out of that, it's a balance of being able to push yourself, being able to try new things, to shoot for the gold, whatever, and also being able to let go completely of that. To recognize, again, like I said earlier, if I want to taste real bliss and pleasure and peace, it's not about getting everything you want. It's about letting go.
Dude, actually. It's right now, actually.
If you can learn how to let go. Because that's the thing. It's right now. It's one thing to say that conceptually with words. It's like, oh, it's all perfect right now. Why doesn't it feel like it is? Because there's subtle clinging to something that you don't have right now. And this is where gratitude practice can actually be so transformative. As cringy as it is sometimes on social media, it is deeply transformative. Because what are you connecting with? What you have right now. And actually, you don't have to cling to the gratitude. You can actually just release. So this is not about good or bad, pleasant or unpleasant. It's about letting go into what's here. And that includes what you could call pain. That includes what you could call pleasure. Let go into it. That's where the freedom is. That's when you can really, honestly, savor the good times better. And the bad times are less shitty because it's because you've let go of the expectations that are kind of fucking all that up. So, yeah, hot hell, cold hell, take your pick. Neither are really the place to be. That would be an interesting conversation to talk about the other 6 realms in Buddhism. If anyone is familiar, it is really intriguing and applicable. But yeah, basically taking no L's. It's a shift in perception because a lot of people get stuck in thinking if something's wrong, like something doesn't go as planned, I'm feeling pain, I'm feeling grief, something's wrong with me. Fuck, doctor, can I get some Xanax? Can I get some painkillers? What else you got? Just please make this stop. We have this really just pathologizing mind that says, oh, if I feel any sort of suffering, fuck, something's wrong. Does that mean something's wrong if you're feeling suffering? If you're feeling grief because someone you loved left you or dies or whatever, is that wrong? Is that something to numb? Or is that a gift from God? Is that a gift from creation that is chiseling you into a better, new version of yourself? And this brings me to this topic of death and rebirth, which I would like to touch on briefly, which is, especially as the seasons are changing and we're entering into that death season, which is winter here in Colorado. Can we learn how to let go into that dying process? Because no matter what in life, there are many death rebirth experiences in different mediums, different sort of experiences that initiate those transformative times. And how much of our lives is spent running from that death experience, from that groundlessness. And then we're in this weird place where something feels off and we don't know why. Maybe it's because you need to radically transform and allow yourself to die. Allow the parts of yourself that are begging to be put in the dirt. Let them get decomposed, turned into something new, composted. And that is a process that is usually difficult by default. It has to be. How could the death not be difficult, a death process? And that's where, especially as we're entering fall and winter, the days get dark, shit gets cold, not so much going on. The sunshine is sparse and I can't go on shirtless runs in the mountains. And then you're like, what the fuck do I do? Who am I? What am I doing with my life? And those are the questions that hurt. I don't fucking know. What do I do? And for me, it was sitting with those questions for years that led me to the psychotherapeutic path, that led me to Buddhism, that led me to really everything that I'm now doing. And I wouldn't have it any other way. And that's because, now I learned how to honor the darkness when it does arise.
Yeah. I mean, in order to be who you want to be, you have to kill who you currently are. You have to let it die. And from then, it's a blank slate. It's a fresh canvas. And I think as you go through those formative experiences of letting go, you, begin to trust yourself more and you begin to trust the universe more. So as you callous your mind to those experiences, you're able to then take the lessons and use them as tools. The lessons are no longer just resonating in the body as a feeling of pain, right? You can open to that and realize, hey, it's actually just giving me the sauce. It's giving me what I need to know, even though it hurts, to make my life better beyond my dreams.
Totally.
But it's up to me to get comfortable with that, lean into it, and choose to do something with it.
And can you give me a example from your life of that?
Yeah, I can actually. Think.
Because I can give an example, but I want to give you the chance first.
Yeah. I think really what it is like, honestly, looking back at 18-year-old me, realizing how naive I was to everything. And I'm really happy about it. But at the same time, I think moving out on my own, I wasn't necessarily prepared for all of those trials and tribulations. And I really think it is just like as I've grown older, as I've made different friends, as I've met different people, taking parts of that experience. Actually, this is kind of trash, low key.
All right, well, then we'll cut it out.
Yeah.
Let's mark it. Is that just about an hour?
Yeah.
So 59 minutes in?
Yeah.
I'll give an example. Yeah. So in my life, one of the darkest periods I've ever experienced was a depression that happened about like 6 or 7 years ago. Well, it was like waves of depression. Where, just for context, I first found psychedelics and I first moved to Colorado, and I was just up in the mountains and going to shows and music festivals. And it was such an opening time in my life. And then when winter came around, at this point, I didn't snowboard or do anything really with the winter. And I could not accept that death experience. I could not accept coming back to myself, being more introverted. I liked being extroverted and connected and having everyone like me. So when winter came around, I resisted the shit out of it. I was like, I hate this version of myself. Get it away from me. Let's make it stop. How do I get out of this? And what that led to was a crippling depression where I couldn't go to class. I was still an undergrad at the time. I could barely eat. I was just sleeping. I remember like I was looking at the clock. I was sleeping for like 16 hours a day, just in my bed. I mean, I was staying in bed literally the whole time. I couldn't move. Everything was gray and lifeless. Like nothing motivated me. I was like, but why? And it was really fucking dark. And, you know, I never was directly suicidal, but I was like, damn, do I have to just do this shit forever? Like, it would be so much easier if I could just end this. And I never was, you know, really contemplating like, how the fuck do I end my life? But, you know, there's levels to it. I could see if that continued, I would have thought that, because it's not a life worth living. Mm-hmm. And what's going on there is just an incredible amount of resistance. But the silver lining of that extremely dark depression, where, again, I've said this in previous podcasts, but I want to reiterate it. The person you see in front of the camera right now is not how I've always been. You've never seen me in this depressed state. But again, like 5-6 years ago, I was so depressed and dissociated and just anxious. I couldn't make eye contact with people. People would speak to me. I didn't even know what they said because my mind was going a million miles an hour about how much I fucking hated myself. And it was so brutal. It sucked. And now people see me and they just think I've been like this my whole life. He's just, you know, spiritual fuckboy, playgirl cover, whatever. And I'm like, nah. I've had so much darkness, whereas, again, it's not a life worth living. And I look back and I say thank you to that. Because what did it point me towards? Because of that darkness, I booked a flight to Asia and rode a bike across Vietnam, recognized I'm still depressed. This still kind of sucks, even though it's kind of dope. It still sucks because I'm depressed. And then I went to India and I went to an ashram during COVID, and I was on lockdown at this Shiva ashram called Pulchati, just north of Rishikesh. And that's where I started to learn a lot. And the universe, it's so trippy now that I look back at it. It's like, oh yeah, you want to learn something, you want to be free, stop running, sit down in this holy place while the world is ending. And after that, I went to Zen centers and really learned about meditation, the mind, and Buddhism. And now I have these insights where I'm like, bro, I feel really free, really free. And I would not have found that without the darkness. And I'm so fucking thankful. Thank you, God, angels on my shoulders, for taking me into that portal of darkness. Because, again, if you're in that portal of darkness, keep going, keep looking, don't stop. Find the things that resonate. For me, it was Buddhism, understanding the mind and how we are constructing suffering through clinging and resistance in every way, and understanding that can lead to the crippling experience of depression. Understanding the role that our stories play in depression. When I live in a flat, lifeless existence, of course you're gonna be depressed. When there's no consciousness in this place, when there's no magic here, when it's just science and buildings and money, who fucking cares? Just end it. At least that's how I thought. I was like, bro, I learned pretty quick. I was like, if that's all that this place is, I'm legitimately over it. Like, there has to be something more. And instead of looking externally, you shift the focus internally to look at your stories, look at what you're making for yourself from the inside out. And that's, again, I wouldn't have it any other way, because now I felt like I don't just live in this flat existence. I've added dimensionality to life through actively playing with the imaginal, playing with my stories, because you can turn them into anything. So you add this depth where when the wind hits your face, is it just the wind hitting your face? Or is something speaking to you? Literally, because you decide. And we can re-enchant the cosmos from the inside out. It's our choice. And that's the thing. This is not, it's not going to make you money. Actually, it probably will make you money. I think it's going to make me money. So we're going to, but like, that's not the point. It's so much deeper than that. It is about making this place a dream and not limiting ourselves. Remembering that this is the dream and shattering the glass ceilings. Making this place heaven on earth from the inside out, one person at a time. And for me, it's like, I want everyone to be on the wave, almost because when people are on the wave and deeply free and whole, they're just better people. They're more fun to be around. Great. Let's do that for my sake. So it's like, it's also on the spiritual path. It seems like selflessness and selfishness, at a certain degree, they start to merge into one thing, where I just want a good time. I just want to feel good. And I find what feels really good is actually being of service to other people. So they start to blend and merge into one thing. So yeah, in praise of darkness, when it's there, it fucking sucks. And that's by design. And don't stop looking. There's a Winston Churchill quote. I think it's Winston Churchill. Maybe somebody knows. But it's, if you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. But whatever you do, don't stop. If you're going through hell, keep going. And that's the thing. It's keep fucking going. Don't stop. For me, it's like the hell realm, the shitty stories. Use your body as a compass. If there's a story that you're believing that is causing you suffering, that is an indication to find a different story. Don't just say, oh, that's how I am. And this is pretty complex because I'll just touch on this briefly. If the story is very painful, the psyche contracts around it and makes it seem very solid. It also shrinks all the space in the mind so that the only thing we can focus on is the shitty story. And I don't want to touch too deeply on that right now. But yeah, we're about at an hour 05. And here we go. The sentence. So, this is my bad. It is Martin Luther King Jr. who said, if you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, crawl. But whatever you do, keep moving forward. So that was MLK Jr., Martin Luther King. Thank you, Val. Yavel, the man in the back, the producer. So yeah, not Winston Churchill. It was Martin Luther King. And maybe that's a good place to end, unless young Jeffrey, you have something else to add.
No, I think that's a great spot to end it.
My man, thank you for doing this convo as always. I appreciate it. I am Duff Daddy 100. My name is Ben Duffy. This is Spiritual Fuckboy. Let me know what you think. This is one of my best friends, Jeffrey Kennedy. Jeff, do you want to plug anything you're doing or your socials or anything?
Yeah, 100%. We got ski and snowboard season coming up. So if you're looking to get fucking nasty, get with it on the snowboard, hit me up on Instagram at j.d.k__. You know, really just on a mission to inspire as many people as I can through the adventure sports. And it's brought me great friends. So I think this is a great spot to end it.
Amen. Yep. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Let's go.